Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Kind of a Bitch. I put a call out last week, and if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw it. And my question was, what are we doing right now to get out of a funk? What are we doing right now to get out of a funk? I have days, I'm sure you do as well, where I like to call them sad girl days, where I just kind of wake up and I I just don't feel like my sparkle is there. It's just not it's just not sparkling. And you wake up, everything feels a little bleh. It's not awful necessarily. It's just kind of flat. And I think for me, it's not the days necessarily where I'm crying in the shower, but I definitely don't feel like answering emails or working out, um, or seeing people, right? I just kind of feel like I'm having a sad girl day. And sometimes I will comb through everything going on in my life to figure out maybe what the cause is. But other times, I just feel it. So I'll say to my husband, I'm having a sad girl day, not a bad girl day. Like a bad girl day is when you feel like a badass bitch and you want to put on a fierce outfit and go out and take over the world. Sad girl days are a little different. I know that you've been there. And based on the responses that I got from this call out on Instagram, I know that you've been there. I have been there. And like I said, last week I was having one of my own sad girl days, sad girl weeks. I don't know. I would probably say it was a little more of a prolonged sad girl thing. And I know kind of what it was sparked by. There was some family health news that kind of took over my brain. And we had a tough week with our dog. Uh, for those of you who have pets, maybe special need pets, you know that there are just certain weeks that they rock you. And I could not get out of that funk. And I will tell you, it was causing me to not only lose my motivation, but I also found myself missing little things and forgetting things that I'm usually really on top of. I had a couple of listings going live, and luckily I have a team that is able to double check my work. But yeah, there were just a number of things that I just couldn't seem to get out of this funk. So this episode is I'm hoping it's going to be kind of a little light bulb, a little flashlight for when the funk hits. This is for me as much as it is for the folks listening. I think my goal for this podcast is to always share what is working for me or what has worked or perhaps what I'm currently processing. And I think the more that we share what we are learning, the more other people can learn and it's better for everyone. So this is definitely not like a clinical deep dive, just so everyone is aware. I'm not diving deep on depression or on anything that will really take you into that real life funk. These are truly for the days when your vibe has left the building, okay, and you're just kind of stuck, okay? So I want to walk the line, the real line between feeling your feelings and also not letting them completely drag you down, right? Dragging us down into a multiple day um, TikTok scroll, doom scroll, lay in the bed, can't get your stuff together. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, what is a funk? Before we even solve the problem and I provide some of the fun things I've been reading, I want to name it. A funk is not laziness. A funk is not failure. A funk is not weakness. And it's also not proof that you're taking a step backwards. I know for me, when I get into a funk and I'm struggling to get out, the thing that I start thinking is, oh gosh, is this a back step? Am I truly not over it? Why can't I just get over it? It's like this. I start to view it, especially if it's taking me a little while to get out of it. I start to get pretty critical of myself. I start to feel that shame. And so I want to note here for all of us, myself included, a funk is not proof that you're backsliding. What a funk is, however, is it is your nervous system saying, so it turns out I'm a little bit overloaded right now. I'm a little overloaded. It's an energy dip. It is decision fatigue. It is an emotional hangover. It could also possibly be a system backlog, like too many tabs open in your brain. If you saw my computer right now, you would see that is exactly what's happening on my end. And sometimes that's just what's happening in your brain. And I think that's really the best visual. It is like when you have 100 tabs open on your computer. So when you go to click a video or open a new tab or start the search engine, it takes a really long time to load because things are just not firing as quickly because you're in overload. So the little bit of science here is low dopamine will usually equal low motivation. Stress and cortisol can often lead to brain fog. And then poor sleep or overstimulation in general can oftentimes mean less capacity to emotionally regulate. One of the points that I wanted to make sure I drive home is that, yes, it is so important to feel your emotions. That's something that I talk about a lot with my therapist. That's something that came up a lot in some of the responses that I got on Instagram, which I will be sharing, was sitting with the feeling and learning to really process those feelings and those emotions. Because as we all know, the more you tamp them down, the bigger that explosion is going to be later. I used to compare it to like a bottle of Coke. And if you shake it and shake it and shake it, and you never release that steam a little bit of a time, it's sooner or later, that bottle is going to explode. And it's not going to be fun for anybody, you included. So I want to stress the importance of feeling and sitting with your emotions and learning to really process them. But I also don't want to marinate in them. And I think that line can be a little bit difficult. I want to make sure that one of the things we are not doing is shoving our feelings or our emotions into a drawer and pretending that we're fine. I don't think that you can journal or affirmations your way out of actual real burnout. But I also don't think that it is healthy, nor do I think that it is realistic for being a functioning human in today's society to pitch a tent and hunker down into that funky, super sad girl zone. This is where I want to bring in a fun piece of, well, I'm actually going to talk about it all the way throughout. So I'm going to bring in a really awesome, cool lady who I have been reading all about, and that is Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. She is a neuroanatomist. So she's, yes, neuroscience, but neuroanatomist. So her whole job is understanding the actual parts of your brain. She's an author of a book called My Stroke of Insight, and she had a stroke which completely shut down the left side of her brain. And as a neuroanatomist, she was talking about how fascinating it is to be able to learn about and experience your own brain as a brain expert from inside of your own body. It's truly fascinating. She has a TED Talk, and she has a couple of YouTubes, and she has a couple of books, really interesting stuff. Would highly recommend reading more of Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor if you are interested. But she is a big educator on the four brain characters. Her whole idea is that we have four different characters in our brain, and it's the four different parts of our brain. The first character is the left thinking brain. So yes, it is the left side, but it is the thinking side. It's the organized, detailed, logical thinker. Then you have the left feeling. So it's still the left side of the brain, but it's the left feeling side of the brain. And this is the emotional, one of the notes that I wrote down here, fear-based and sometimes reactive self. But one of the things, kind of more background on that left feeling side, is the left feeling side of the brain is the one that can think past, like think of things that have happened, and can also project ideas into the future. So it's the part that will take experiences and help you learn from them. Fascinating, right? But that's also where some of that fear comes from. Character number 3 is the right feeling side. This is the creative, the optimistic, and the compassionate self. So the right side is more about the self, it's the consciousness. Okay. Then the right thinking side, this is the peaceful, spiritual, connected, the part of you that thinks, wow, I'm a part of this big, huge, beautiful world. This being conscious of your soul and this much bigger thing. That is the right thinking side. And what Dr. Jill says is that by recognizing which character is dominant in like a specific moment, this is where a person can consciously choose to engage a different part of the brain, which will help to shift perspective and or mood. One of the things that she talks about is the 90-second rule. She says, this is a quote that I pulled from one of the articles that she had discussed this in, was when a person has a reaction to something in their environment, there is a 90-second chemical process that happens in the body. After that 90 seconds, any remaining emotional response is a conscious choice to stay in that emotional loop. I feel like I might fluster some people here because I don't think it's very fun to hear that when you are in overwhelm or you're looping, which I'm a big looper, I spin a lot. When you're in that state of constant negative thinking or whatever, uh, hearing that is a conscious choice, I think is doesn't feel very good. So kind of reading this, I'm going, oop, all right, all right, all right, all right. I hear you, Dr. Jill. So basically, the body feels, but it's the mind that not only makes meaning of those feelings, but also chooses to recycle those feelings. You get to choose whether or not to rerun the story or to let it totally pass. Before I move on to this next little bit of research, I wanted to share a couple of things that I personally like when we talk about feeling the feelings, processing the feelings without letting yourself get dragged down, without drowning. The first one is a voice memo vent. Now, listen, I personally, me and my girlfriends, we send a lot of voice memos back and forth. I love a voice note. Like when I see a 4-minute voice note come in from my friends, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a podcast from some of my favorite people. Is my favorite thing. And I will say we definitely tend to process out loud. And yes, those voice notes get shared back and forth between each other as a form of processing. But I do think that even if you're not going to send that to somebody, if you don't have someone who you feel comfortable or safe processing emotions aloud with, even finding a moment to open your phone, press record, talk, don't use punctuation, don't analyze what you're saying, just get it out, especially if you're not a journaler. Right? If you're not someone who's going to write it all out, I think sometimes that verbal processing feels really good. Number 2 is the name it to tame it idea. Being able to state, I feel overwhelmed, not giving umbrella statements like I suck at life. Right? This is, I think this topic is so intriguing because I'm learning as my husband and I have done our own therapy, as we've been in couples therapy. I'm learning how different brains think and how we've been taught to analyze ourselves, to be conscious of our own feelings and emotions. And I have learned that there's a lot of people who do not necessarily have the skills right now to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling. And so, even if that means that you're pulling out a feelings wheel or you're looking in, I don't know, a thesaurus to find some words for different emotions that maybe you don't quite know what you're feeling yet, finding a way to label it and to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling anxious, instead of labeling yourself, name calling, right? And that was something I've also learned recently, is this idea of not claiming like I am anxious, giving yourself the label of being a certain emotion, but saying I am feeling anxious or I'm having anxious thoughts, right? Letting that feeling be something you're experiencing versus something that you are. I think that whole science is very intriguing. We won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but labeling emotions will activate your prefrontal cortex, which calms the amygdala. If you're a brain person and you want to read more about it, that's what it's coming from. The third one is this like what's underneath prompt, this idea of being like, okay, what's underneath this? What's underneath this? I was just talking to an agent about this. I had a client who was viewing a house, and this literally just happened today. She was viewing a house and was taking a little bit too long in the home. And that is, that's kind of on us. And so I let the agent know that, hey, it looks like we ran a little bit over. Many apologies. And the seller was not happy. And some of the feedback that I got via the agent from the seller, you could just tell that the reaction that the seller was having was outside of the experience that we had all just had. And so the agent and I just got to talking, and she said, listen, I think, truth be told, the seller is really overwhelmed, and we've had a couple of bad experiences, and there are other past experiences that inform the current feeling that you're having, even if the current feeling you're having is not based on that past experience. So I think being very clear about, okay, what is this actually coming from? Where is this funk truly mm, rooted? Being able to say, like, I'm tired, which, where does that come from? Because I've been overextending, because I've been saying yes to things when I really should have been saying no. And then what's the last bit of that? Well, why am I saying yes to things when I should be saying no? It's because I don't want to disappoint people. So again, being really understanding and clear with yourself about where this is coming from is highly beneficial. I think the real win here is not fixing it. It's being able to witness these types of feelings without judgment or shame. Now, I want to talk about momentum. Okay, like I said, when I had sent out this call just saying, "Hey, how are we handling our funks right now? How are we handling our sad girl days?" Then I definitely got a number of comments that were saying, you just have to sit with it. You just have to sit with it. And I say, yes, 100% I agree. But what if it is day 3 or day 4, and you have work and you have bills to pay and you have people to be in front of, kids who are relying on you, right? There's a lot of other things that continues to happen, and you can't always sit with it. So let's talk about momentum. When you're in a funk, you do not need a complete life overhaul. You need little cracks of light that will peek through the darkness. So let's talk through a few of these. I'm calling them low lift but high impact shifts, and this is something I when I'm coaching, I talk about low effort but high impact activities, and this is kind of the same way of thinking. So I want to bring back some of the research from Dr. Jill. She talks about when you are looking to move through these feelings, to actually reset, to readjust your mindset, especially when you're feeling yourself kind of drowning in that funk, is we have to activate the right brain. And we have to focus on experiencing joy and peace, because the right side, the right brain, is where a lot of those feelings will come from. So as I mentioned earlier, the right side, the right emotional side, right feeling side, is constantly thinking, like, how does it feel to be in my body now? It's a side of your brain that can be in flow state. Okay. And then the right thinking brain is the consciousness of the bigness of this world, right? Like, oh my gosh, I just find that so fascinating. So there's these two pieces. And when you're focusing on the present moment, getting yourself in that flow state will help you move more into that joy and peace. And so that's engaging in activities that will shift your focus away from this linear, logical left brain thinking and into the present moment. So that's different for everybody, whether that is playing a sport or meditating or going and doing pottery, right? There's so many different activities this way, but getting yourself into the flow state is highly beneficial here. Mindfulness, like I mentioned, meditation is part of this, but mindfulness, observing how you're feeling, observing the thoughts that are moving through your brain, and observing them without judgment, like seeing them pass through and observing without judgment, focusing on breath. All of these things can help detach from negative thought loops to experience more peace. Because again, that's all this is, just a little loop, just a little negative thought loop. Talking about the activities that engage the right brain, as I mentioned before, this could be different for everybody. I know for me personally, it's things like listening to music, having a dance party. I don't do a lot of, actually, that's something that was mentioned, and I will read all of those here at the end. But spending time in nature, actually going for a walk, getting outside, maybe without your phone. This was one that was noted, but gazing at a fire You can't tell me that when you are camping or doing anything where there is a bonfire, that sitting there and staring at the fire does not release some type of happy chemical. My husband calls it bush TV. He says it in Afrikaans, but it's called bush TV. And it's just this idea of like sitting in the woods staring at this fire. And you could just stare at a fire crackling away for hours, puts you in total flow state. I love it. Anything that helps connect you to beauty and to flow and to the present moment are recommended. What about managing emotional reactions? I'm going to bring back that 90-second rule. And again, this is one that when I read it, I felt a little bit like, I don't know if I like that. I'm not sure if that feels good, because I will say sometimes it feels good to be like, "Ugh, I'm in a funk and this is just where I am and I can't get out. And that's a bummer for me." It feels nice sometimes to not feel like I have control over those feelings. And sometimes I don't know if you do, especially if it's major crisis, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about sad girl days. We're talking about a funk. So this 90-second rule, again, the idea is that the first 90 seconds, you're going to have that emotional reaction. But after that 90 seconds, that is a conscious choice to continue looping. When experiencing a negative emotion, acknowledge the emotion and then wait for the initial physiological response to pass, because that initial response will only take about 90 seconds. And what's so funny is I'm thinking about this here right now. Like mere moments ago, I just had this experience. I was finishing up in the bedroom and I got a text from this agent about the showing that I had mentioned that wasn't that didn't go very well, and I immediately felt the adrenaline rush my body. I felt that rush that you can feel it move through your bloodstream, and I thought to myself, I immediately pick up my phone and I can feel myself starting to panic, and I said to myself, hold on, pause, just take a breath, like let that chemical reaction die down and breathe for a second. And if I'm doing the math right now, I'm pretty sure it was about 90 seconds. I took a minute, sat down, gave her a call, and everything was okay. So I don't know. Maybe there really is something to it. So then the thought here is, okay, so choose a different response. My first response is usually panic, usually fear, usually overwhelm, or fear is really the biggest one here. But then after 90 seconds, consciously choose a different response rather than engaging in the same negative thought pattern that fueled the initial emotion. And I have talked about this in another podcast, but I'm thinking about our ability to storytell. And that's that left, is it the left? The left emotional, the left feeling side of the brain. That's that part that thinks to itself, oh my gosh, it can project into the future and play out those scenarios based on past experiences, based on things you've heard, whatever. And so that's that part of the brain really coming in and engaging in that negative thought loop, because you're telling yourself a story. You're telling yourself this long story about everything that could go wrong and whatever, and you're re-engaging that initial emotion. So actively choosing a different response. What about rewiring the brain? One thing that Dr. Jill mentions is emphasizing that the brain is plastic and it can change if you are actually putting effort into changing, like having conscious effort, um, consciously choosing to make a change in the way that you are responding, the way that you are acting in this world. She says by repeatedly engaging in practices that activate the right brain, that right emotional part that feels the gratitude and the bigness and the connectedness of this world, by actively engaging the right brain and fostering more peace, even through those activities that will foster peace, those neural pathways, the ones that will help you stay out of those funks, can be strengthened, which will make it easier to choose more positive and peaceful states when crazy stuff is happening. Isn't that fascinating? I'm fascinated. Go watch her TED Talk if you're curious. Let's talk about a few more things that are kind of low effort but high impact. Light therapy. Oh my gosh. I have my happy light right here. It is sitting right here. It is just having some type of light. And yes, here in Seattle, if you're one of my Pacific Northwesterners, that is hard. So get yourself a happy lamp. But if you have access to going outside, opening a window, letting your eyeballs see natural light. And this thing is noting ideally before noon, which would be great. It's also good for our circadian rhythm. So health all around. Hydration. Uh, this is a note for me, but drinking a full glass of water. Drinking a full glass of water. I don't know if that's going to be me. I'm notoriously bad at drinking water, but listen, low effort, high impact. Change your clothes. Ditch the sweatpants, the old dirty hoodie. Put on your outside clothes. Put on your people clothes. Put on your school clothes, even if you're not going anywhere. And I stand by this. Whenever I would go to school when I was younger, my mom, if I had a test or something like a presentation I was nervous about, my mom was like, she would make sure that I was leaving the house in an outfit that I liked. If I felt good, she was like, if you feel good, if you look good, you'll feel good. That's what she always said. If you look good, you'll feel good. And I 100% believe that. If I'm having a super shitty day and I want to feel maybe not quite so icky, actually, one of my girlfriends says this too. I want to feel 10% better. Put on a little makeup, do my hair, even if I'm going to stay in my sweatpants, but now I look a little more, chic, different vibe all around. So change your clothes. Another one, music and movement. Choose a song. It doesn't have to be a million songs. Choose a song. Move your body for 3 minutes. You don't have to dance if you don't want to. It could be stretching. It could be pacing. It could be marching. It could be jumping jacks, whatever. That's something that my husband also says whenever I'm in a little bit of a funk or I'm being grumpy. He's like, shall we do some jumping jacks? Which I do think is hilarious. But that is something that we do here. And then this last one here is reset one surface. And I love this idea. Wipe a counter, make your bed, toss out a little bit of trash. Um, you're sending your brain a message if you do these small acts that we're not giving up today. Okay? We're not giving up today. And you've heard it. People say if you make your bed every day, you start off the day with a win. And I don't know. I will say when my bed is made, I do feel a lot better. We've got a couple more here. These ones are a little bit weirder, a little maybe surprisingly effective. Um, Shaking. This is something we did in school. Shaking your body, actively shaking. This isn't even just dancing, but shaking your body like a dog after a bath. It discharges stored stress. No joke. And we used to do this in school, and we started off small, and it was literally called shaking. And there were 3 methods to it. The first if it was like 10-minute intervals or 15-minute intervals, it would be 15 minutes of shaking, like violently shaking your body. You get so sweaty, you're exhausted. Then you do 5 or 15 minutes of flow where you would move your body in a more like dance like state, more smooth movements, and then 15 minutes of total stillness. And I'll tell you what, the emotions come up, they come up and out. My therapist always says the emotions are going to come out one way or another, whether it's through tears, through movement, through snapping at somebody. And for me personally, I will always choose to do movement. But that shake it off, that shake off the feeling, this is also where there's a little bit of somatic work that comes in. So that says hi. Another one, draw your funk out. So give it a persona, a personality. Give it a name, a face, a voice. Let it be a character, not your identity. Let it be a character, which is kind of like, I don't know. That kind of is like what I say. I just am having a sad girl day. It's like, ugh, this is like that sad bitch. She's back right now. And she's being total trash today, which we love for me. Sometimes you can just step into character, but then it's easier to step out. The couple of these are sort of funny. This one is noting an accent switch. Narrate your next 3 tasks in an over the top British or villain voice. I think that is hilarious. You'll short circuit your brain's kind of reflex. You'll short circuit it. Give yourself a different accent. That's fun. What about smells? I walked into a Bath and Body Works today and I thought to myself, am I going to get a couple of candles? I didn't because I have candles here that I love. But scent, it ties directly to memory. Using perfume, essential oils, a candle that you love, a shampoo, these things remind you of a better day. I love putting on a little bit of perfume, even on the days when I'm wearing like a sweat set. out because I don't know, there's something about feeling a little bougie. Also, physical rhythm. I mentioned this earlier, but um, having some type of like marching, but this is also noting the physical rhythm equals mental rhythm. So finding a repetitive movement, like when you hear a metronome, right, or clapping or tapping the body, right, finding moments to give yourself that physical rhythm can really move some of that funk out. This is where my one of my favorite things right now is action brings answers. Action brings answers. I mean, this is the it brings clarity, and clarity brings more confidence, and then confidence will eventually lead to some more momentum. So this could be something as simple as texting a friend something kind or funny or a meme or whatever. Just connect. This is not a vent session. That's definitely something you can do, but I'm just saying, like, find an opportunity to connect with somebody. Walking in a public space, you don't have to talk to anybody, but letting your brain remember that other humans exist. And what I like about this is, again, we're tapping into that right brain emotional side, that right brain feeling side that knows, that is conscious that we are part of a much bigger system. It breeds more gratitude. And so just being in those public spaces, even if you're not interacting necessarily, will really help that. Again, this is kind of that 10% rule, but finding an area, a thing, a something to do one small task, whether that is like put, a couple of shirts away, or even just picking up the dirty clothes from the floor and dropping them in the hamper. Uh, delete 5 emails from your inbox. I don't know, something that kind of gets the ball rolling. And if this is music is your jive, which is, if you know me, it probably is. But finding a playlist that is all of the songs that get into your soul, the songs that hit you in a certain way that you just can't help but smile when you hear them. Really making those playlists and playing them when you're doing things, when you're in action mode, so that when you put it on, you're activated into action mode. What about, though, if none of this stuff is working? What if none of this is working? We did all the things, we made the bed, we drank the water, we danced it out, we we put on fancy pants, and you just still feel bleh. You know what? That's okay. I think when that happens, when you try the things and we're just not moving, I think this is when we have to shift from action to acceptance. I think that sometimes your only job is to give what you got. And it's the idea that you you're giving 100%. If you only have 20% to give today and you gave 20%, then you gave 100% because 20% was all you had today. I say that with a small grain of salt. I do think that is if we have put the other things into action, right? We have to start finding opportunities to move ourselves out of that place. But if you've tried, if you've done a few things to move yourself out and you're still feeling a little meh, you know what? At the very least, you did a couple of things, and now you can lay on the couch and soak it up however you need. I think at that point, once nothing is working, I think that's kind of when we gotta like default into, I'm in a funk routine, the funk routine, if you will. I think that maybe this is something you need to decide when you're not in a funk, perhaps. So just having a checklist of the things that you're like, these are the minimum activities or minimum things I got to do today, so that I just know that I've done something, anything. And that could be as simple as a small list of, I'm going to take my probiotic and drink my water. I'm going to take a shower. I will call somebody and have a 10-minute phone conversation. And I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk, right? It's not going to necessarily fix everything, but I think that when we have those routines that we do regardless, especially on the days when we're feeling a little under the weather, those are the things that I think that keep us grounded. And I don't know about you, but I personally like having a couple of things that I know, even if I didn't accomplish a lot during the day, I can say at least I did these 5 things. At least I drank my water. At least I ate 3 good meals. At least I took my probiotic and I washed my face in the morning and the night. I did my skincare, whatever. I want to read a few of the ideas that I got from folks on the intranet when I'd send out, what are we doing to combat sad girl days? I'm just going to go write down all of these responses. Earbuds. Earbuds are a must on a sad girl day. Music, podcast, audiobook. Another one, I spend 1 hour at least walking in the woods with no screens. Truly so healing. Another one, put on a full album and take a long walk with my pup. I love that. Latte, deep breaths, fresh air all together if possible. Another one, treat myself to something I usually wouldn't have. Another, walk outside. Another, this one's actually kind of fun. This is kind of walking the line between sitting in it and giving yourself a treat. Watching trash reality TV shows. Give myself a time limit and watch some trash TV. Love it. I bake cookies. When my life is chaotic, it grounds me and helps me reset. Remember what we said about flow state? That's what that is. Another one, long, long walks and trying to stick to my routine. There is that funk routine happening. Got a couple of things you got to check off. Maybe we're not outperforming ourselves, but we're doing the small routine. Here's one that I love. Put on a killer outfit and throw in a 30-second dance party. Throw 30-second dance parties in throughout the day. So little moments to get up and just kind of shake it out a little bit. I love it. So I love this. Someone said, I ate a Cinnabon and that truly slapped. I'm obsessed. Cinnabon forever will always be the best cinnamon roll. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if your grandma made it. Cinnabon rules every single time. Someone took a dance class, something that was a little different, breaking up the monotony and going to something totally different. Someone had mentioned a workout. Obviously, there's a sweet treat and a favorite TV show. Again, a small routine. Turning off my phone for a full hour or more and journaling. I love it. Here's someone who mentioned you don't combat them. You just let them be and they will pass. Totally agree to a point. Another person commented, I like to give myself a little pep talk in the car when I'm driving to whatever thing I have to do on those days. That is so fair. Again, another, getting outside, no excuse, just exist outside. You don't need to push movement, just get outside. Another person noted, slow down, be okay in the silence, rest and reflection are very helpful. We've got alone time, petting my dog. Another person said a baddie workout, an ugly cry, and watching Carrie Underwood's American Idol audition video. I'm obsessed. I love that. Another, some kind of movement. When I'm not feeling it, I'm obsessed. I say it is a grumpy girl stomp. Done. I'll do that forever. If I'm not feeling movement, I'm calling it a grumpy girl stomp. Girl, I'm obsessed with that. Another one said, I'm taking a new class. I want to go do something I'm not familiar with, like pottery or a workout I've never tried. Obsessed. Texting a friend, even if it's not related to sad feelings, just connecting. Again, perfect. That's science backed. Backyard hangs with snackies and bevies. Obsessed. And essential oil baths. I love it. Smells, scents. Moving my body, even if I don't want to. And then the last one here, prayers, sunlight, and activity that is comforting. See, so this is interesting because people have naturally found things that really work. And all of these things have some type of data that backs it up that says, yeah, this is really something you can be doing. So again, if you are having a week or a day or a month where you are in a funk and you are struggling to crawl out of that hole, truly my heart is with you, because when stuff is going on in life, that's truly some of the hardest, when you got to keep moving through life, when stuff feels funky. But my reminder for you is that you are not broken. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not behind. You're just between chapters, between the moods, right? Between the seasons. I think that the most frustrating thing about these is that sometimes a funk just means that you're in a rest mode that your system needed, even if you didn't schedule it. You are allowed to feel low. You are allowed to be with the feelings, to process the feelings, but you are also allowed to interrupt that loop. The funk, it does not define us. It does not define us. It also does not disqualify us from still moving through this world, being a member of society, even if it is giving the 100% that you have, which is maybe less than some other days. And I think having grace for ourselves when it's those days, which I certainly struggle with, I think that is one of the biggest pieces. Remembering that this will pass, remembering that momentum, it does not always feel good. It does not feel good to start sometimes, but it does work. And also reminding yourself, you do not have to be a morning person. You don't have to be um, the highest and best version of yourself today. I think you just need to be the version of yourself that takes the one small step towards moving through, instead of sitting in. So, if you are having one of those weeks, one of those days, try one of these things out. If you have a different idea or something else, some other routine or funk routine that you have or that you use that you want to share or send in, please, by all means, shoot me a DM on Instagram or send us an email. Other than that, thank you so much whenever and wherever you are listening. I am so, 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 so grateful for your listening ears. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm happy to have you here as well. I will talk to you next time. Bye.